All right, today's lesson we're going to talk about divs versus spans. Okay, so I've already got my HTML powered up and everything. I'm gonna do a little H1 right here. H1 divs versus spans. All right, let me go ahead and go live. And placow, there we are. We're live. All right, so divs and spans. What are divs? What are spans? So thus far, everything that we've done in HTML, we've just kind of been putting code out there real loosely. We can do a H2 and we'll have a P tag and all et cetera, et cetera. We've been doing all of that, right? And it's been just really loose. So, but when as we move forward, we want to figure out how we can better group things, group our content together so that it's organized. And that's where we get into divs and spans. Okay, I'm going to erase this foolishness right here. So a div, what is a div? A div or a span even is essentially a container that holds content together and it groups it together. This is the best example that I like to give. So I talk about it quite a bit. I like to DJ on the side. It's a hobby of mine that somehow I've been able to monetize over the last couple of years, which has been pretty cool. But anyways, as a DJ, and I spin all vinyl. Okay, so when I do a gig, it might be 2, 3, 4 hours or whatever, and with that, it means I got to bring a lot of records, okay? Because I don't like to play the same song twice. Matter of fact, I won't play the same song twice. Very, 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 very rarely will I ever play two songs from the same album during a gig. But anyways, when I'm gigging and I want to take my records somewhere, I'm not gonna grab these individual records one by one or just hold a stack, 5 hours worth of albums. I'm not going to carry that with me, okay? That's not what I do. When I'm gigging and I'm taking my records, load them up, what I got to do is I have to carry this big giant crate right here, okay? And in that crate, I can get about 5 hours worth of songs to play for a set. And so it's much easier to carry that crate around as heavy as it is, as opposed to me trying to load 5 hours worth of albums. So just individually stacked, that's going to be real difficult. So that same concept goes into this idea of divs. With divs, we are able to group content together and hold it together. And essentially what we'll see later is move it around a lot easier than doing it one by one. So when we look at this, the way that it works is simply we just use the div class. I mean the div. I'm sorry, I'm getting way ahead. The div element here, and inside of that div, I can put content. So I can say h2 my content p tag. This is my stuff, and I'll just put a placeholder image in there as well. Okay. So when we look at this, it really doesn't look any different from a regular HTML document, okay, what we've seen thus far. Divs are block level, okay, so in other words, if I want to make another div, I say h2 more of my content and do p tag says this is some more of my stuff, and I'll do another placeholder image and make this one 250 by 250. As you can see, they are block level, meaning that the div takes up the entire row, just like we've seen with our text elements. They take up the entire row. Okay, so divs are block level. It is simply a container that allows us to group our content, hold that content together. Okay, so why divs? We'll see that later when we get into CSS. But right now you need to know that a div is a container that holds content, and the important thing is that they're block level. Now, a span is essentially the same thing. It is a container. The difference is a span is inline, okay? And what I mean by that is that a span is everything's going to be on the same line. It does not take up the entire row. So if we did something like this, right here, I'm going to do a div, and I'm going to write D, do another div, it's going to be I, and one more div, that's going to be V. And we notice here we say D, I, V, and they're all on this different lines, or they're on a different row. So I can do the same thing with span. I'm going to say span S, span, and do a P, span A, span, and N. And we look here with the span, we see that it is going to be in line. So in other words, everything is on the same line. Now they kind of function the same in that it's just a container that groups stuff together. But what it does, it allows us to actually group it together. But a div, again, is block level, takes up the entire row. A span is inline. So where would a span be used in particular? Maybe something like this. I could do something. I could make a p tag, and I can say satch, and then I'll put a span right here, and I'll say work. And so when I look at it, everything looks okay. Satch work right there. But then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here inside of my CSS and show you how this works. I can say style, and I can say span, and give it a color, favorite one, Dodger blue. And so now we see that in using the span, okay, I can target a particular piece of text and apply a color to it, or I could do something else to it if I wanted to. Maybe I want to change the font size or do something else, and it just targets that particular piece of text and leaves the rest of it unchanged. So that's the difference between a div and a span, okay? Really, again, we won't see a whole lot of difference in it or its real power until we get into CSS, particularly when we start working on layouts. Then you'll see the real power of div and a span. But if you want to group your content together, okay, so that you can organize it and do things differently, it's best to put your content inside of a div, or if it's going to be inline, put it inside of a span. That's the lesson, divs versus spans. Again, as always, practice, 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 practice. It'd be cool if just looking at me code could make everybody a developer, because then I would be like stinking rich, because all you had to do is just watch my videos and look at me, watching me do it, and then, oh yeah, I'm a developer now. No, it doesn't work like that. Sadly, it doesn't. Otherwise, I'd be a wealthy man. But honestly, it's just going to take you practicing, 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 okay? You may not get it right now. You may not know what's happening, what it's actually doing, but with practice comes getting better, okay? And you'll get understanding as you practice. All right, this is Satch. Peace, power, and blessings, y'all. See you on the next lesson.